In this video, I want to go over one of the most undisputed facts about a man. That man, whether you believe in him or not, is the most influential man that ever lived. That man was Jesus. That he lived in around 32 AD and underwent one of the most brutal forms of capital punishment, the Roman cross. Scholars, be it Christian, atheist, Jew, or Muslim, widely accept by almost universal assent, is that he was crucified by the order of the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate. The question I have when reading the Bible account on the death of Jesus is, why the cross? First, we need to look at the text and find out exactly what Jesus was guilty of. Let's take a look at Matthew 26 verse 65. Then the high priest tore his clothes and declared, "He has blasphemed! Why do we still need witnesses? Now you have heard the blasphemy!" So we see that Jesus wasn't guilty of breaking any Roman law. It was the Jewish leaders that decided he was guilty of blasphemy. In the Jewish law, we read in Leviticus 24 verse 16 the following: "Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord is to be put to death. The entire assembly must stone them." So now we need to look at what capital punishment is defined as in Jewish law. The law states he was to be stoned. We can also read about Jesus in the Jewish Talmud. In the uncensored Munich Talmud in Bisan 43a. What we find recorded there is the actual arrest warrant the Pharisees posted. Yeshu the Nazarene, or Jesus of Nazareth, will go out to be stoned for sorcery and misleading and enticing Israel to idolatry. Any who knows anything in his defense must come and declare concerning him. This was given 40 days prior to Jesus' arrest and trial. Again, note the warrant says to stone him. Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, and to the Sanhedrin, this would mean he was misleading and enticing Israel to idolatry. We can see that the disciples knew about this arrest warrant, as in John 11 verse 8, Thomas says to Jesus,
"Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again?"
Again, we see in the text that they were seeking to stone him. Upon his arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane, after the betrayal of Judas, Jesus was brought before Pilate. What we read in John 18 verse 31.
"Take him yourselves and pass judgment on him according to your own law."
Jesus hadn't broken any Roman laws, and Pilate really didn't want to kill Jesus. So he authorized the Sanhedrin to deal with Jesus by their law, which would be to stone him. Now do you see why I'm asking, why the cross? The very people who taught Jewish law, who spent their life in strict obedience to that law, suddenly want to obey Roman law. And they state, "We have no king but Caesar." They wouldn't even go into Pilate's home because they didn't want to break the law and not be able to partake of the Passover. Why didn't they follow their own law and stone Jesus? Why does this even matter? Because the cross is all over the Old Testament. If Jesus would have been stoned, it would have invalidated many prophecies. The Apostle Paul makes reference to a verse we find in the Old Testament. Remember, back then they didn't have any verse-chapter separations, so just quoting a portion of the verse, his readers would know he was referencing the entire passage. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse. Because it is written, "Cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree." This is found in Galatians 3 verse 13, and it quotes Leviticus 21 verse 23. Let's look at it in the full context. And if a man has committed a crime, punishable by death, and he is put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night on the tree, but you shall bury him the same day, for a hanged man is cursed by God. Leviticus 21 verse 23. Paul may be revealing a mystery in that the law doesn't mention hanging as a capital punishment, nor does it direct to hang a dead man on a tree, after another form of capital punishment. And why that person is considered cursed by God for this offense, and not others. "1,450 years later, in the light of the New Testament, Jesus took the punishment of all man's sin. In doing this, he was hung on a tree and cursed by God.
My God, why have you forsaken me?"
In the book of Numbers, we read that the Israelites had sinned against God by showing ingratitude for the food God provided them on a daily basis, and that it would have been better for them to remain slaves in Egypt. As punishment, God sent snakes, and many died. God told Moses to make a snake out of brass and put it on a pole so that the people didn't have to do anything like poison, trap, beat the snake with a stick. Those works wouldn't provide the salvation the people needed. Anyone that was bitten, all they had to do was look at the cross made out of the brass snake. By doing this, they would be saved. The snake represents sin. Remember the serpent in the Garden of Eden? That sin was nailed to a pole, forming a cross, and lifted up for the salvation of the people. Remember, this was written 1,450 years before the cross was invented by the Assyrians, perfected by the Romans, and Jesus crucified on it. What this video hopes to show you is that there is more to the Bible than just a random collection of stories, and that before there was such a thing as crucifixion, the Old Testament foreshadowed the event. And I am only showing two of many examples, such as Isaiah 53, Psalm 22, or Genesis 22. For I passed on to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters, most of whom are still alive, but some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James and all the apostles. And he can appear to you too,